Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Lunch and Learn, our monthly session where we really take the opportunity to unpack a lot more of the business concepts with you as we go about exploring what's important for our business. And as we allow the couple of others to join, we will get going shortly. And I think importantly today, we're going to cover off on a very important topic, which is recruitment. So whether you're joining on Zoom or whether you're joining on Facebook Live, we look forward to really unpacking this element of recruitment that always seems so difficult. And where do we focus and what do we do? So we're going to get into that and make sure that we can impart enough information so that you can make better informed decisions. So far in the series, we've covered all things like time management, team management, we've done sales, we've done marketing, and in September, rightfully so, as we head into spring, we're even going to relook at goal setting. And by now you would have known, as going through the process, we always have a little bit of a different take on some of these concepts. So we want to make it simple, but practical, that you can actually implement it. Because if you're in business today, sadly, especially if you're the business owner and the entrepreneur yourself, nobody taught you how to run a business. And yes, you can go to business school and you can go learn a whole lot of theory, but this is one of my favorite ones that they don't teach a subject on anywhere. And I remember one of our coaches one year being quite taken aback by one of our clients that kept including the coach in more of the practicalities around the process. And when she eventually challenged the client and she said, but I'm happy to guide you through this, but you've got all these people working here. Why do you want me to do that? And he turned around and he said, well, the reality is, despite the fact that he'd been in business for more than 20 years, despite the fact that 28 staff members worked there, he said that he didn't know what to look for in a CV, let alone how to conduct an interview. And when the coach was quite taken aback, she said, but how is it possible, a 20-year-old business with all these staff working here? And he said, everybody that works here arrived, knocked on the door when we had a need. And we said, yes, sure, get going, start working. Or somebody knew somebody, and that's how they ended up here. And therefore, it's easy to fall into that trap to think that people know recruitment, what to look for, what to do. And the reality is we don't. So we want to make that as simple as possible for you today. Because like it or not, I love it when people say, technology is going to take over the world and we will end up having no people, because as business owners, sometimes that's your biggest frustration. The reality is it's still the number one source of leverage. And even the biggest tech companies in the world have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of staff. And it was interesting to see, before the pandemic, all these big companies building bigger campuses to house these tens of thousands in staff in a tech world where we supposedly don't need people. So you're always going to have to deal with people, and let's see how we can make that work for you. So the first thing around recruitment that's important when you look at recruitment is, I think too often we end up going lastminute.com into firefighting mode. We should have recruited a long time ago. We're desperate and we just recruit the first person that we think we need, both in the recruitment process, but even before that for the type of role that we need. So the first part about recruitment is doing a future org chart, an organizational chart, not as it is today, but as how it may be in the future. What is going to be required in the future, not just in my company today. And that's what I want to do. So especially in a smaller company, there's a lot of overflow, but you want to have that diagram already geared to go at any minute in time. So for now, I might not have a sales division. I've got somebody doing sales and marketing, but ultimately I might want a sales director. I want a sales team. I want a marketing department. HR might be one person for now, but they will ultimately be a department. So I want to map this out kind of 3 to 5 years from now. What will the future of this company look like? So that when I'm going through the growing pains of my organization, I know exactly what the future will look like, how I need to map this out who's going to fit in where and when, but also, and there's other benefits that I'll talk about now, so that when I go about recruiting, I select the right person. Because I might have a need here of 4 different positions all at the same time, but then I can look at it at a high level and go, no, that's the priority. That's the one I'm going to recruit first, rather than the frustration that I'm feeling drive the priority. So if I've got that future org chart in place, the other thing that this allows me to do is, even if, let's use the sales example again, even if I'm bringing on a junior salesperson, I know that they're going to form part of a sales function. So there might be an opportunity for a sales manager going forward that might go into a business development director thereafter. So now when I'm recruiting somebody, I know, is this a junior person? Is it somebody that I can see that has potential, that I want to groom into a management role? I want to then bring in somebody else underneath them later on. Is it somebody that will stay at that position? And that's okay. But also what it does, especially in a flatter organizational structure, it gives people a career path. In a corporate function, you've always got a career path. You know that here's my supervisor, there's the manager, there's the director, and that's the path. But often in the small business, you don't have that. So if you have this path mapped out before the time, you make sure that you recruit the right priority first. When you're looking at the person, you can see, okay, where's this person going to interrelate? Am I looking for somebody that can take on more senior responsibilities? Will they have to be a bit of a jack of all trades, master of many to start off with, but then maybe niche? And I need to know all that stuff before I'm even looking at the individual. So the first thing you do is you create a future dated organizational chart. What will this company look like? And if you 10 people in the organization and you're mapping out 100 years for the future, that's fine. Doesn't matter. It's what your organization will look like that you want to go about doing. The next thing to understand, and especially for the ladies listening to this today, we're actually going to unpack this a little bit more on Friday at our Thriving Women seminar. And if you listen to the recording later on, you'll find it online. But it's a deselection process, or should be, when we're looking at recruitment. The process that I'm going through when I'm trying to find the right candidate for my business is a deselection process, because I want them to deselect themselves if they don't fit. And I want to be able to deselect those people if they don't fit. It's not everybody can fit in, everybody's going to be perfect, and at the last minute, the right candidate will be selected. No. We want to create a process where the company and the individual can deselect themselves at any given time, which is a critical one. So we want to see this as a deselection process, which means if it's a deselection process, I'm going to actually want people to maybe have a few more steps. I'm actually going to want to get them to do some work. I want to start getting them to do some practical stuff in between. And I want to check elements in the deselection process as if they've already started. I don't want to go through all the schlep of bringing people on board, onboarding them, training them, and then 3 months later finding out that they're the wrong person. There's a lot of stuff we can do up front. Now, when we work with our clients, we actually teach them our 4-hour recruitment system. In 4 hours, literally from concept to finding the right person, obviously it's broken up into a couple of different stages. What's the process? But I'll give you some practical examples. If you're going to have somebody coming on in a sales kind of role, good. Then in the deselection process, I want them to be doing some selling. Whether that's to a friend, whether that's to a colleague, whether it's making some phone calls to some of our other staff, I want to be able to test their ability in the process. And there's maybe different layers. I'll give you some more examples. If it's going to be a marketing related role, I want somebody to put together their marketing thinking. Now, if we hire marketing people, we always get them to present at group interview stage. And I will tell you about that now. Group interview stage, they must present 5 minutes, their marketing ideas for the company. 5 minutes. You do not get 4.5 minutes. You do not get 8 minutes. You get 5 minutes. If you haven't used the time, that's it. But at 5 minutes, I cut people off. And today it's easier with virtual because you just mute them in the group interview. And you'll get people that will get very nervous about presenting something. You'll have other people that want all the detail. And I'm always very comfortable to say, we're not going to be taking your 5-minute proposal and making a thesis out of it. I want to test your ability to think with information that you can find out. You can go run an audit on our social media, on our websites. I want to get their thinking in the recruitment process. When I ran an interview or a recruitment process for my personal assistant a couple of years ago, I purposely put mistakes in the advert. And whilst you're welcome to send a CV, I want a covering letter with the mistakes that you picked up. Because you cannot tell me that you're good at detail if you can't pick up the mistakes in the advert. So I'm testing that up front before I've even looked at the CV. Part of the recruitment process was, after we got through a few stages, please send me a photograph of your Tupperware cupboard, your grocery cupboard, or your closet. Because you cannot tell me you've got attention to detail and at home it's chaos and a mess. People that are organized, have attention to detail, are systems driven, generally have that in one of those cupboard spaces. Now, somebody said to me in the process, oh, that's a violation of my privacy. I'm not prepared to send that. No problem. They've just deselected themselves. Then you don't have to go any further. I had somebody once in a marketing presentation say, well, I'm not prepared to put in all this work if I'm not guaranteed of the job. And I don't want, how do I know that you're not going to be using the information going forward? So you've just deselected yourself. Because do you really think our organization is that simplified that 5 minutes of work that you've done is going to be our new marketing strategy? No. But I need to test your thinking. And if you don't want to play the game with me, you deselect yourself. It's as simple as that. So in that process, you want to have tests and measures all the way through. We always do a group interview. Now, I've had people say things like, oh, it's unconstitutional. No, it's not. But I've also had in a group interview, literally a room full of people, somebody push themselves away from the boardroom table and say, Harry, with the greatest of respect to all these candidates here, I think so-and-so is right for the job, not even themselves. Because in a group environment, you get to see how people think, how they behave, what their manners are like. You get to sense the culture and the fit for your company. It's not a one-on-one, let's call it BS session. I ask them the same boring stuff and they tell me exactly what they think I want to hear. You don't get to play those games as easily in a group scenario. So it really puts a magnifying glass on the candidates. The other beauty about a group interview is that you've always got the benefit of having some of your own staff, some of your own people in that group session. They can ask some questions. They get to meet the rest of the team and they quickly get to see if there's a fit or not. Both the delegates maybe deselecting themselves, saying, I don't know if I can work with these people. But the team going, I think that person will be a great fit. That person I'm worried about ABC. That person, maybe if we fix X, Y, Z. And it's much more of a group-focused scenario. At that group interview stage, I do the talking for the first half an hour to hour. What is this company all about? What is the vision? What is expected from staff in general? What is expected from the role? If after that you want to leave because you think it's not for you, wonderful. You're welcome to go at any stage. And I've had people in that process go, yeah, this is not quite what I'm looking for. Fabulous. Then I don't have to waste more of my time and you don't have to waste more of your time. So I want to make sure we're testing in the process. A more complicated, more specialized role, I'm going to put more steps post-group interview before we get to the one-to-one interview to make sure that I'm testing their thinking. I want to, not just references, I want them to actually be doing the work that they say they can do, have done before, and how they're going to apply it here. And like I said, generally, there's very little information that they need to go on for that. I'm not providing all our IP up front. They must make do with what they've got. Because I'm just testing their abilities. In there, I can test their ability to spell, to work a computer, their PowerPoint skills, their presentation, their communication skills, etc., etc. So it's a deselection process we go through where they are deselecting themselves, either voluntary or by not wanting to conform to the process, or same for me at the end of the day, to make sure that I'm starting with quite a wide funnel of the right people and then filtering it down fewer and fewer as we go through the process. What's interesting to say is always be recruiting. Now this really messes with people's heads. Now, if we go back 2 slides, 2 flip charts, when I said create the 5-year org chart, I'm constantly on the lookout for who might be fitting in there. And what a lot of people do is, well, Harry, I'm first trying to get my cash flow right. I'm first trying to get the business systems right. I'm first trying to get who they're going to report to right. I'm first trying to sort out the internal politics right. Those are things you're going to fix forever. They really are. So if you've got half an idea of who you're looking for, run the advert. Because here's the thing. If I don't find who I'm looking for, I don't recruit them. Just because I've run an advert, engaged with the service provider to help, whatever the case may be, that doesn't mean I have to employ the person. If I don't find the right person, I rather go back to the drawing board and run it again. So I want to be looking for the right person to join the business. So I want to be recruiting, because when I'm looking, the right person is maybe not in the market. So if I'm always looking, I'm scanning along the way. Now, here's the other thing to understand in this, and this is why people get quite nervous. They go, well, geez, Harry, I'm running the advert today, and the person's going to start in September. No, they're not. Yeah, but then I haven't got the cash flow now to fund the salary and I have to pay them in October. No, you're not, because let's just think through this practically. So we run the advert today. 2 to 4 weeks to really do this, the filtering process, get people to apply. Now, to run the advert today, I must have done job description, all that kind of stuff before the time. So it's even longer as the prep. But let's say I was ready to run the advert today. 2 to 4 weeks before I'm even interviewing. Well, that puts us at the end of August, beginning of September. Then I'm going through a few weeks of filtering, getting them maybe to do some tests, maybe doing some profiling, some assessments, some final interviews. Then I'm checking references, another 2 to 3 weeks. So if I'm recruiting today, it would be very, very good if I can make an offer by the end of September. Now, unless the person's not working and is available immediately, generally they're serving a month's notice, which means that's the whole month of October, which means they only start working for me 1st of November, and I only have to pay them on the 25th. That's if everything works according to plan. I advertise today, and I've got 2.5 months, 3.5 months before I actually have to pay them. Well, that gives me time to fix whatever needs to be fixed. That also puts me under pressure because I might have found the perfect candidate. I might not have to do those fixing part of things, the finding the cash flow, which I might not have done if I didn't have to. So you always want to be recruiting, do the prep, run the advert. If I don't find the right candidate, I don't employ. I go back to the drawing board and I start the whole process over. Because I think too often we're desperate, so we force the issue, or we do this nonsense that says, oh, well, 3-month probation. Now, you have a really good labor lawyer in the staff members court. You're really going to battle with getting rid of them after 3 months, but I'm not worried about that because I know what happens. You get somebody, you put them on a 3-month probation. In the first 3 months, they're finding their feet, things are disjointed, there's all these excuses, and we go, well, yeah, it hasn't quite worked out, but let's give it another month. You're dead and buried. I rather want to do all that work up front, and I'll show you now how to ensure that it's right, and then hit the road running successfully. I cannot put a bad candidate into the role and go, oh, well, it's just 3 months, we'll see how it goes. No, That's just stupidity. It takes a lot of effort to get them on board. It takes even more effort to get them onboarded and get them running. You don't want to be doing that over and over again and going, oh, well, we just write off that time. No, not acceptable. The other thing is a rule of thumb, good old rule of thumb. If you can afford half the salary, then employ the person. Because never mind the time frame I've got to work on to get them to that point where they're ready. But if I can afford half the salary and they start on the 1st, the work that they do for that 3.5 weeks before payday should bring in sufficient money to justify the other half of their salary, or free up time of my own or somebody else's in the team to boost the other 50% required. So if the company can afford 50% of the salary, you employ the person through the savings that they'll bring in, either time or money directly that they'll bring in, it should make up the other 50%. And remember, generally people are starting on the 1st and you're only paying them on the 25th at the earliest. So you've got that buffer in the system. So always be recruiting, very important. The next one is to understand how this whole process works around not just the recruiting part, but the onboarding, getting them going. So the recruitment part starts way before you run the advert. You've done the org chart for the future. You know where the role in the company is going and what position is going to be first. I do that thinking first. Then I want to develop the description of the role. What is this role going to be? What's the need? How do I, if I understand the role, then do the advert? Because often we just go straight into doing the advert. No. The advert must talk to the role. I must be able to, in the advert, test some of the things of the role as per the examples I gave earlier. So I want to get that right. Then I want to go to market with that. But once the person is now coming through the process, or the right people in the group context are filtering out and starting to be the people that are surviving the deselection process and might now be employed, I want to understand that there's a process of before, during recruitment, and then I've issued the offer. Okay, that's still at this stage here, recruitment. I've issued the offer. The offer's all the important details. Now they accept the offer. When they accept the offer, I must be ready with some pre-training. Because on the pre-training side, you've got a couple of scenarios. If they have to work, go back to my previous example, we make the offer end of September, they're serving October notice. What can they do in October so that they hit the road running 1st of November? What could they do? Are there some videos to watch? Are there some manuals to read, some books to read? Can they attend some of our events? Maybe we've got a strategy session coming up. They can come in for that. Maybe they need to take a day's leave in that month. Very difficult I know if you're serving your notice, but they need to come and spend some time with the team. Whatever the case may be. How can I get them doing something, exposing them to the company, to the role, to the people, to our clients, to the culture, in the time that they haven't yet started, between accepting the offer here and actually the first day. So there's a pre-training process. The other reality around the always be recruiting, I could find the perfect person and go, okay, end of September, I'm ready to make the offer. I'm making the offer to you, and your first date of employment is the 1st of March. And then people are always horrified, going, well, what? How does that work? Yeah, just because I'm recruiting and I'm making an offer doesn't mean you have to start on Monday. Doesn't mean you have to start in 30 days. It allows time in the process, both for the candidate and for me. And obviously we can do some negotiation there, but just because I've made an offer doesn't mean it's immediate term. Now, if I've made an offer and the person's only starting instead of the 1st of November, maybe the 1st of December, maybe the 1st of January. As we get to the end of the year, people are trying to hang on for their bonuses. They don't want to necessarily resign until they've got their bonus. Great. So you've got the job. You don't have to start in November. You don't have to start in December. You can resign on the 1st of January. You've got your bonus. You've had your Christmas leave. And then you start with me February. So now I'm already taking into account some potential pitfalls around hiring the right people. So that process could be 1 month or multiple. The longer I've got, the more runway I've got for the preparation side. First day. First day is not the most productive day because they need to meet the people. They need to have a desk ready to go, a PC to work on, passwords, ideally at least the basics already sorted. They need a calculator, a highlighter, a stapler. Make sure that's there. Let them know where the bathrooms are, what the coffee routine is like, where's the good coffee beans, what's the crap we give to our clients, or maybe the vice versa. All that kind of stuff. You want to be ready for day one. You don't want somebody to arrive on the first day, they're nervous, you've got a lot of anticipation, and everybody's sitting around going, okay, what do I do? Who's who? Where do I find what? What's the telephone number of the company so that they can dish it out? If they're having business cards, and I know people say, oh, business cards old-fashioned. If you've got business cards, have them ready for day one. The Wi-Fi password. There's a lot that goes into that first day. So make sure you've prepped that and they can hit the road running. They can also feel part of the community, part of the family right up front. We do in August of this year, 26 or something, no, maybe a little bit later, I think the week after that actually, is our planning not only for the third financial quarter, September, October, November. We already do our 2022 calendar in August. So if anybody joins on day one, it doesn't matter where they are in the year, they've already got the whole year's events planned out and sorted out there. So critical to make sure that first day is well prepped for. And then the onboarding process. What does that look like? And yeah, I'm not a great fan, as you heard earlier on, around this 3-month probation period nonsense. But if you have a 3-month probation period, what is required? What are the steps? How are we going to review it? What are the milestones to hit? What are the consequences? How often are we reviewing that probation instead of waiting till the end of 3 months and going, it didn't work out? So you want to have that clear, not just for the delegate that's joined, not just for the new staff member. You, as the employer, want that clarity so that it doesn't become emotional blackmail and issues later on. You want that clarity. So what's that onboarding process? Now, because the first day we've done a lot of good stuff, great. What else can be included in here? Is there stuff that we couldn't get through enough of in the pre-training phase that can be done here? If they're working with other people in the department, a few hours here, a morning there, a full day there in the next 3 months. So they're not only meeting the people, but really getting into the depth, the nuts and bolts of the role, the company, who they fit in with, and stuff like that. And in here, you want at least one social event in that first 3 months, whatever it should be. Now, I admit, we've got lazy through COVID. We used to have a quarterly social get together of some sort, and we've sort of done it, sort of not. But for that first 3 months of a new staff member, critical to do something social in that onboarding phase, because that's when they really get to learn their fellow staff members. That's when they really get to interact and connect with the people around them. That's when they get to those positions where they go, I love my job. I love my colleagues. I've had a scratchy one with this one, but realize now that we're talking off-site, off work, off business, that this is actually a nice person, that we've actually got a lot in common, whatever the case. So that's the process you go through so that you find the right candidate with some work ahead of time, deselection process, taking your time, making sure you've got the right person, whether it's a month's notice or 6 months notice that we're giving the person on the offer. What can they do behind the scenes? What can they do ahead of the first day? Because that also then gets me, my company, my organization under pressure to perform our required pre-work so that that first day is a good, sorted first day, and then the onboarding process. so that we know who's doing what, when, and how we're getting this person to gain traction and to be comfortable right up front, so that we can hit the road running and justify not just their salary, but the reason why we employed them in the first place. So a whole lot of elements to go through for the process. And the last one, I'm just going to write it up here. It's that rule of thumb, 50-50. If you can afford 50% of the salary, then you should already have had the recruitment done and dusted so that you can get going. Because any staff member that comes on board should do one of two things. Sometimes a combination of them, but one of two is the minimum. They must either make the company more money, or in them being there, they must free up time so that it frees up other people's time to make the company more money. That's the only reason that you have them there. We don't employ people so that we can be warm and fuzzy. We employ people for a role that's going to take the organization forward, and it's going to take the organization forward either by bringing in money or saving time in that role so that somebody else has got additional time to make some more money. And that's the way we should approach it. And if we do that and you apply what we've shared, you generally won't recruit bad candidates, because they will fall out in the process. And sometimes because you have to be the bearer of bad news, often they will deselect themselves. They will not want to be part of what you're presenting. What you said in your advert, what the perception was around the role versus what they're hearing at group interviews, different. What they thought the company did versus what they now understand is different. What they perceived their future benefits to be versus what they're now hearing is different. There's a disconnect. Great, they'll deselect themselves. So if you've gone through that properly, you get the right candidate on board. You're not rushing it. You're giving time, whether it's 1 month notice, because that's how urgent we need, or longer, and then that onboarding process. You follow this, you get good staff. You'll hear things like, I love my job. I love the staff member. We all work in a great environment. It doesn't mean we're all nice. That doesn't mean we all agree at every time, but we've set the relationship up for success. And that's the critical part in recruitment. It's setting that relationship up for success. Like any other relationship, those that are rushed, those that we didn't ask the questions up front, those are the ones that end up being a disaster later on. So we want to put the time in up front, and it's then much easier to execute off the back end. So hope this has been useful. If there are some questions, we've got a little bit of time, you can type them into the chat box and we can see if we can cover off on a few questions. Other than that, if you're a woman in particular, and I see there's a few here, and I know there's a few on Facebook Live also listening on there, remember to go to the website and register for Friday's Thriving Women Summit. It's the second year in a row that we're hosting the summit, and really excited about 4 phenomenal women from 3 businesses presenting their story and how they've gone about creating truly world-class businesses under some really trying conditions. And then also 3 kind of masterclass events from our women coaches in ActionCOACH. Going to be talking about leadership, marketing, and recruitment again. So a jam-packed Friday from 9 till 12. So get in on that. You can either find the details on impact.actioncoach.com or actioncoach.co.za. So you'll find that there. And then most importantly, September, we're going to be focusing on this session, on our Lunch and Learn session, on goal setting. So just like we have 1st of January, I know a lot of people go into spring and going, oh, all this excitement, weather's changing, it's spring. We want to approach that with some vigor. And because we've got September, October, November, and December still left, really critical to come and look at your goals and reflect on them so that you can finish the year strong. We don't write off the 8 months of this year, no matter how good or bad they were. We reflect on where we're at, and we push hard to finish the calendar year strong in those 4 months, but also the financial year. And if you're in business, you're probably running 1st of March to 28th of February. It's finishing the financial year strong. And the importance of the October-September transition is the first 6 months, the first half of the financial year is past, and we reset for the second half of the financial year. So it's not just January to December. We also need to, as businesses, focus on March to February. So we're going to do all of that in the next session, second Tuesday of the month, same place, on Zoom, lunch and learn, me and my flip chart. And from my side, thank you very much for joining. Hope this has been useful to add a little bit of a different flavor to recruitment, but hopefully make it seem a little bit easier. You're a little bit more comfortable with the process so that you can go out there and find the right person to help you run a better, more profitable, more sustainable company and organization. So thanks very much, everyone. No questions coming through there. So we'll see you for the goal setting session on the second Tuesday of September. Have a good one. Cheers. Bye-bye.